What's up guys, Tom here from Metalloud, and I'm here to review a new album from the band Capsize called A Reintroduction, The Essence of All That Surrounds Me. So Capsize is a band that really I've heard their name drop, never really checked them out, especially with their 2014 EP, The Angst in My Veins, was kind of where they started to gain a lot of popularity. And this brand new album from them has been described by people who do actually know the band, who do listen to the band, as a more experimental album, as something completely different from that EP. I can't speak as to whether or not that's true or exaggerated or whatever, but this album is just absolutely fantastic and definitely a great way to get into this band. And as a full-length debut, basically, it's just full of quality. I really like, even right from the get-go, the first song, which is called XXO My Eyes, which starts off with this kind of electronic work and then just breaks into these chaotic guitar riffs, and the ending breakdown is just kind of off the wall. It really reminds me of the early days of post-hardcore and even hardcore music back in the early 2000s, and it's something that kind of carries on throughout this album. I really enjoy the song Tear Me Apart, which is one they released a video for. It's actually one that first really caught my attention. It's a song about moving out of his dad's house, and kind of the relationship at that time was very not good, full of turmoil. And that one starts off with this kind of guitar riff going on. Sounds like it's going to be a much softer song than it actually is, and then it just breaks out into this dissonant guitar riff that I really enjoyed, and opens up even further to the verses. It's emotional, it's powerful, and something that they really do throughout this album is really these emotional lyrics that never really get whiny, which is something I enjoyed. Even in the slower song called Safe Place, which is just an electronic song essentially, it's not aggressive, but it's still full of that emotional lyrics, and it's kind of atmospheric as well. What they did with the electronic work, it's something I really enjoyed from the band. There's the song Favorite Secret, which is kind of about a hidden relationship. It's almost like a post-hardcore pop-punk kind of song. It's really interesting to listen to, but overall this album is just like a kind of a throwback album. It's really got a classic sound to it. It reminds me a lot of a mashup of The Used and Under Oath, almost like Under Oath between They're Only Chasing Safety and Define the Great Line, because it's not quite as heavy as Define the Great Line. Never really gets that heavy, but a lot of the guitar riffs especially are reminiscent of that album, but it's not quite as I don't want to say emo, but as They're Only Chasing Safety, and it's kind of more fleshed out than that a little bit. It feels like the more progression that Under Oath had seen from the Define the Great Line. So that's kind of where it fits in. It almost feels like in that kind of era, and it's something I definitely really enjoyed. It almost feels like I really kind of reminds me of The Used, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that his vocal work was extremely reminiscent of Bert from The Used, and guitar work as well. Kind of the post-hardcore sound that they do have is also kind of reminiscent of The Used, but musically, sonically, it sounds more like, I would say, something from Under Oath in that era versus The Used. That's just more of the vocal work. But just overall, I really did enjoy this album. It surprised me. I listened to that first single, and I wasn't sure where they were going to go from there. I'd heard kind of mixed things about the band in general, but this album, like I said, is a great way to be introduced to the band.